And yes, finally I come to the intellectual delight of my lifetime. Truly, along with my father, the intellectual delight of my lifetime. And I dare say, the intellectual delight of the lifetime of many of the Country Day senior citizens in this room tonight. You know of whom I'm about to speak, Mr. Hecker. I honestly do not believe there will be anyone like him again. Mr. Hecker believed that English was something to worship, never abuse. Thus, I shall say of Mr. Hecker that he was unique, not truly unique, not very unique. Such rhetorical abuses would cause the squire to curse this gathering. Whether in a Shakespeare sonnet, or a Jack London novel, or a Dickens story, Mr. Hecker could infuse your brain with the majesty and vibrancy of the author's word picture. Reading, inspired by Mr. Hecker, was infinitely more magical and vivid than listening to radio. I remember the last time I saw him alive. It was in the late 1950s. I was circuit attorney of St. Louis. Someone told me that he wasn't doing too well, either physically or financially. I called him up and asked if I could visit him. Yes, he said I could drop by. It was a terribly hot August afternoon. He lived in a small home in Ferguson. The windows were open. An oscillating fan was buzzing back and forth on the living room floor. He said, "Tom, go to the icebox and get a beer." I did. When I opened the door of the fridge, as my wife would call it, there was a bottle of beer there, one, along with a half a loaf of bread and a jar of preserves. That's it. That's all there was. I hesitated for several moments. Then I heard Mr. Hecker's voice from the other room. He said, "Tom, take the beer. At my age, a bottle of beer is a waste. At your age, a bottle of beer is a cause for hope." A cause for hope. I remember those words. Those are actual words. Those words I remember. And I think that's how the Country Day faculty of my era viewed the students. Despite our arrogance, despite our rudeness, despite our manifest insensitivity, these magnificent men dedicated their lives to shaping our lives so that there might be a cause for hope. And I shall proudly carry away with me tonight the fine honor that you have bestowed upon me. However, 37 years ago, I carried away something much more precious. I carried away the everlasting imprint of a marvelous assemblage of educators who found some cause for hope in me and has caused me to have hope for others.
And I think that one thing that is really illustrated today, not just by the three of us, but by so many other people who are in this room, is that we gained something of that commitment to serve, to do something worthwhile with our lives, that we gained that commitment from Country Day School. We gained it from the faculty, from their example, because these people, as Tom pointed out today when we visited the students, by their examples of what they did with their lives, sacrificed themselves, gave of themselves for the sake of making things better, for the sake of improving the lives of a generation to come. And not only their example, but the fact that they cared about kids and liked kids and gave us their time and their interest and their encouragement. A number of hours members of the faculty at Country Day School spent with me, arguing with me, talking with me, trying to reason with me about my great passion, which was politics and still is, I could not begin to count. And from that came the encouragement, the push forward that meant so much to me. And then, in addition to the faculty, the classmates. The class of 1954 is still something of a unit. It still has a quality of cohesiveness, togetherness, even after some 29 years. A friendship which has always been there. Sometimes young people spend their times tearing each other down. That was certainly not the case at Country Day School. It was a close class and a close school, and students encouraged one another and uplifted one another. The song says Country Day School shows the spirit, and I believe that that was the case with the students I knew at Country Day.
I think that Tom, Jack, and I were remarkably fortunate. I think that those wonderful kids with whom we visited this afternoon are perhaps even more fortunate, even though they missed Robert Lemuel Hobbs, missed Don Webb and Hugh Johnson. The sophistication of the educational process is something that is more than encouraging. It is heartening. It is, to use Gene Hecker and Tom Eagleton's phrase, cause for hope. You honor a great institution, one whose importance I thought I understood when I was privileged to be at Brown Road and spend 5 of the most important years of my life. Far more important than college, far more important than law school, certainly, and even more important as a learning experience than the U.S. Marine Corps. And a great deal more pleasant. I've got to tell you that I think that what you have done in keeping alive and improving upon the great traditions of the St. Louis Country Day School are important perhaps beyond any measure. I told these bright, wonderful kids this afternoon that looking out over that audience, I was convinced that Country Day had not graduated its last United States Senator, and more importantly, that they should understand that public service comes in many forms. That it can be a Dan Lane who has become a fine physician. It can become a research scientist who finds new ways to help the Lanes heal those in need of healing. It can become an employer who, like Mac McDonald, Jim's father, turned a very small garage operation into a massive employer protecting the security of the United States. It can, in fact, take so many of the forms that are so well represented in this room. I must tell you that there are a room full of outstanding alumni in this room tonight. You've gotten 3 for 1 with the first of these exercises. I will have to tell you that what you're doing by keeping alive and improving upon the great traditions of excellence of this great school perhaps not only will provide leadership for St. Louis, for Missouri, and for the nation, but hopefully for the world